Good afternoon, folks. Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here with your tropical update for September 24th of 2018, brought to you by Tropical Pool and Spa. We've only got about 5-6 more of these things until we're going to ease back on the tropical updates daily, and we're going to tune to more weekly updates because the tropics tend to slow down as we get into parts of October. So here we are on the peak, September 10th. We fall pretty quickly by the time we get toward the beginning of October. We get a little bit of a peak in the later portions of October before we really fall down as we head toward the beginning of November. So the good news there is we've passed the peak. The bad news is this little thing right here, which is kind of our secondary peak. That's after the cold front started to get through here, like the one that we were talking about last week getting through. And then the tail end ends up getting kind of either stuck out into the Gulf of Mexico and breaking off, or then we start looking at the Central American gyre. You guys may remember that from last year. If we are to get another storm, it would be Michael and then Nadine back in behind that. Michael will have to watch for what's happening just off the coast of the Carolinas. Nadine, maybe a while, and we may never get there. Hopefully we don't. But I would argue that Nadine will probably be something off of the Central American gyre or off of one of these fronts that moves through and falls apart. Temperatures into the Gulf of Mexico, water temperatures hanging out in the 80s, out into the open Atlantic, also into the 80s. Look at how many buoys we've lost this year in terms of temperatures. That's pretty incredible over one year. I know we started the year off with the one in the Central Caribbean and the one in the Bahamas not registering a temperature. I believe this one was from, I think actually both of these were from Matthew. Getting damaged from Matthew, both of these, and then I think the one out here was Maria, if I remember right. Interesting that all of them from M-named storms. I'm not quite sure why these two have went away. Same with the one in the Western Caribbean and the Central Gulf. Either way you slice it, warm. Nothing happening out into the Gulf right now, thank goodness. We've got the cold front that's moving through. You see, here's the tail end of a cold front, and this is why we watch these things closely. They get out into the Gulf. If the area of low pressure leaves, you're left over with some of these showers and thunderstorms at times. And if you end up getting a centralized area of low pressure, you can eventually get yourself into something that's maybe kind of spinning around out here. We don't anticipate that with this one, but it is one of the reasons we keep our eyeballs on it. We've got Joyce out here. We've got Invest 98L. We've got what's left over of that tropical depression 11, and we've got what's left over of Kirk, and then we've got yet another wave coming off of the coast of Africa right now. Now we'll start off with the remnants of Kirk out here. It looks a little bit better today. We still have a little bit of outflow here in the higher levels. You've got somewhat area of organized central rotation. It's cooking though, moving off to the west at about 23 miles an hour. Current wind speed at 40. About 1,000 miles, about 1,100 miles off to the west-southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. That's right over here. This thing's going to run into the same shear that the tropical depression did. It'll probably get mostly ripped apart. We're going to have to keep our eyes on this one, which, by the way, is back to being one of these invests that the National Hurricane Center is talking about, with a 50% chance of reorganization. The reason we're going to have to watch, we'll get back to that in a second, is as it gets in here, let me go back, as it moves through this area and moves into the Caribbean, once it gets by the shear that's right here, it's a little more favorable on the other side of that. So if it makes it all the way through, again, it's something we'd have to keep tabs on. Invest 98L floating around near the Carolinas, a 50% chance of development here, as it kind of loop-de-loos its way back out to sea, hopefully, and it hopefully doesn't bother the Carolinas. All right, remnants of Kirk out here. This is what I was talking about. Notice how it moves toward the Greater and Lesser Antilles, and there's a little bit of a bend out here, just at the very end, just a whoop, just a little bit. Well, you get enough shear out here, and that's what's kind of easing this thing to the north. The question is, does it have enough gusto to get through that? It's already moving at about 25 miles an hour. I would argue probably it's going to get ripped apart pretty good, but I think it actually makes it out to the other side. Once it does, as we get into Monday of next week, then it gets into a little more favorable area out here into the western sections of the Gulf of Mexico. So it's something that, or excuse me, western sections of the Caribbean and south of the Gulf of Mexico. This is where we're going to have to watch things, and we got plenty of time to get there. That's Monday of, not like this week today, but of next week. We've got in 98L, making a real close pass to North Carolina and then back out to sea. We're hoping this holds for the folks in the Carolinas, because the last thing they need is more rain. And again, this would be Michael if it ended up being anything at all. What do the models say? Well, you know, our GFS says it gets close, but no cigar. It goes back out to sea. Here's Kirk, getting ripped apart pretty good as it, again, moves through that shear. The GFS right now doesn't have it moving through and doing much of anything once it does, and then it kind of closes most of the open Atlantic and into the Gulf of Mexico to the north, leaving a little driveway, so to speak, of waves to come off the coast of Africa, although as of now, nothing doing there, which is good news. So there's your tropical update, brought to you by Tropical Pool and Spa for September 24th of 2018.